Back here on the Meat Speak podcast, powered by the certified Angus beef brand, Bryan Schaff. With me here in studio, Chef Tony Biggs.
Bryan,
how you doing?
It's great to see you. Oh my gosh, I've missed you terribly.
Oh, it's been
How have you been, my friend?
It's been good. Of course, we're all making preparations because 'tis the season. It is the Christmas season.
Have you done all your Christmas shopping? Or you're like me, the biggest procrastinator on the planet? Wait, last minute.
You know, I at one point was the largest procrastinator on the planet, and then this thing called Amazon Prime was invented.
Thank goodness for Amazon Prime.
My gosh, you know,
oh man,
yeah, it has saved my bacon more than once.
I think I've bought everybody Alexas this year. You know, just put them in the thing, deliver them, and she'll sing to you 24/7. Man,
that's
it's
right.
Beautiful.
That's right. You know, Chef, because this is the Christmas season. It is the season of giving. It is the time to give back. It is a time where, you know, if you look around, you know, there is always need in the community 12 months out of the year, 365 days, you know, but really the Christmas season is when a lot of folks really take notice, and a lot of people are a little bit more compelled to open up their wallets, to open up their hearts, to reach out and to help those less fortunate. So we wanted to take today's Meat Speak episode and talk to a few of you who, as chefs, have put your culinary talents to use to help those who are less privileged. And you, as you know, it's one of the subjects that we've mentioned in the past few months on the podcast, but we've never really gone in depth. You know, of course, you've been around the world. Here in Worcester, Ohio, here with the podcast, here with the certified Angus beef brand. This is actually kind of your second time coming back stateside from abroad. The first time you came back from the Philippines to New Orleans to post Katrina to work with the Second Harvest Food Bank. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I look back on that experience, and it kind of, Bryan, when I worked for Hyatt back in the 80s and the early 90s, it kind of all started there, believe it or not, and then it translated into, transformed into New Orleans later on. But back in the 80s, 90s, I was heavily involved with the Second Harvest Food Bank. I was able to gather all the clubs, chefs, restaurants, hotels to rescue what we call leftover food. Okay, it's not food that is going to be thrown out. It's food that is very, very nutritious, ready to eat. And I had every single body involved in Savannah that wanted to be part of this. It was so easy. It was thank God. Okay, thank God, because it was so easy. And from there, it just blossomed into fundraisers, raising money for the food bank of Savannah, into helping those less fortunate in the area. And for 6 years, it was just an amazing run. When I left there, I think we left a legacy. They're still doing a chef's table, which raises maybe $500,000 a year in Savannah to help those less needy. And so, I think we left a really great legacy. When I say we, all the chefs of Savannah. So hats off to those guys. I love you guys for doing that. And it was just an amazing run. My career took a different path, and I worked overseas, as you know, and I kept in touch with my friend Natalie J-Rowe, who I work with in Savannah, and like we all do, we sometimes get transferred. And where'd she go? She ended up in New Orleans as the chief executive officer of the Second Harvest Food Bank. So I was living in the Philippines with my family. We were ready to come back stateside and settle down. And I reached out, and she says, "Boy, you're just the one I was thinking about." This is like right after Katrina, and Katrina was just an absolute disaster for everybody. I mean, and believe it or not, probably up to 3 years ago, people are still trying to recover from that storm. It was just kind of amazing. After that storm, during that storm, I believe that the city of New Orleans was just not prepared for the devastation. And so the idea was to partner with Catholic Charities, Second Harvest Food Bank, and construct a community kitchen that in the event that this would happen again, or a disaster, or anything, that 1 in 4 children are go hungry in the state of Louisiana. So this was a staggering number when you're trying to help those in need, and it opened my eyes and my heart to a lot of different situations I was in, meeting those less fortunate, and it was just I love my time. I love my time at the Second Harvest Food Bank. I spent 2 years there. Believe it or not, while our community kitchen, which was about 12,000 square feet, the goal was to do 2 million meals a year out of this kitchen. We began at a place called Grace Church off of Canal Street, and it was probably as big as what we're sitting in right now to do this podcast. So you can imagine, one stove, and we were doing 200 to 300 lunches a day out of this kitchen. Okay, and we did it very, very successfully because you're under the watchdog of the USDA to get credit for those meals back. There's a certain criteria. Certain service sizes of protein, grains, vegetables, milks that you have to adhere to get credit for the meals that you're serving. So it was just that we went from the small kitchen into the community kitchen, where I was blessed to be able to have a lot of say in this kitchen. And for chefs out there that are looking for that second, third career, food banks are always looking for you guys and gals that want to give back to the community, want to volunteer, but also want to run their kitchens. They need expertise in this area because I vowed personally, along with Natalie, that we were not going to serve junk food to any of our children. It was going to be a made-from-scratch product. Thanks to the donations of people in Louisiana and the grants that we got. And we were able to do some really fantastic meals. Let me give you an example. We got some salmon donated one time, and we portioned up 2-ounce portions. We grilled them. We made a nice, a beautiful white sauce with it, fresh green beans with almonds, and a little bit of sweet potato pie. We got calls. I mean, we would always get calls. The kids loved the food. It was healthy. They were not eating out of convenience stores, which is a real problem for some families. They come down, they just think that a bag of chips is going to do it. It doesn't do it, okay? So they're looking for that nutritious meal, and this is what Second Harvest brings to the table. I mean, the work they can do now and the work they continue to do, hats off to them, because Natalie and her staff have done a fabulous job with this program.
One of the things that our guest who we're going to hear from actually here in a few minutes, Chef John Doherty from, of course, the Waldorf Astoria and Black Barn in New York City, and his Heavenly Harvest. You're talking about a chef who spent a career feeding more dignitaries and royalty and U.S. presidents than any other chef in history. Yourself following a similar path, cooking for Imelda Marcos, being, in the country of Jordan, cooking for the King and Queen and the Tokyo American Club. And you have chefs like yourself and Chef Doherty who have spent so long cooking for folks of that caliber. Is there something just born in chefs that, although that may be, where you're spending a lot of your days, at the art of the concept of hospitality is about taking care of everybody. I mean, does everybody have just that pull to do for those who can't or don't have access to?
It's a great question, and I think, like everything, and I think you would agree with this. it was how you were raised. It was how your parents were raised. I know your mother. She is like a superior lady, and I love her laugh. Well, my grandmother had a lot to do with it, but my mother did too. And my mom, Carmilla, I learned at a very, she's a single mom, grew up in New England. She was a counselor at the East Boston Drug Clinic. And I can tell you, she brought me to work one Saturday. I'll never forget it. As we're headed up to New Hampshire to ski with some friends, she had to give the methadone out to their heroin addicts. And let me tell you something. If you want to see something that's going to scare the living S out of you, is to see a line of people strung out on heroin, swearing at your mother, every F-bomb in the book, every bad word, and I could hear it, and it was so loud, and it was so vicious. And I was in the back room of the drug clinic, and I was absolutely terrified. And then I'm hearing all this. My mother walks back and grabs her bag and goes, "Okay, you ready to go?" Like nothing ever happened. That was an eye-opener that I never wanted to ever see or hear again. And so I think my mom, my grandmother, she got along with everybody. She was the most giving person. She would give you the shirt off her back. And I think that just rubbed off on me. I mean, at the end of the day, they're materials. So, I mean, you got to help everybody. And feeding folks that are hungry and to help them, be better educated with food is my gift, I guess. And we used to do something at Second Harvest called Cooking Matters. And we would take, it would be a 3-week course where we take underprivileged families. We would teach them simple, quality, nutritious recipes. I would go in with an already lined out itinerary, a cookbook, a recipe they could follow, not expensive dishes, but home-cooked quality meals for their family. The people that I had interaction with was just heart-wrenching and melted me.
It's amazing. It's amazing. New Orleans, every time I visit it, it's one of those cities that seems to just go on and on and on. And, cities like that, you can just imagine the amount of need, particularly when you throw in a Hurricane Katrina into the mix.
It's just amazing. And I have to say, too, I met a lot of really astonishing people. Emerald Lagasse there. And I happened to be on Chopped because of the food bank. I was chopped, ladies and gentlemen. So if you want to go to Unsung Heroes 13, you can see the bigs go down in flames, okay? But I was able to go to the White House and meet Michelle Obama on the White House lawn. And I just met so many unbelievable people that Americans just want to give back to their communities. And I have to say, Natalie has done an unbelievable job, and her staff to make the Second Harvest Food Bank New Orleans probably one of the largest in the world. And the work that she does is just she deserves a medal.
Outstanding. Chef, we're going to take a break. We're going to switch gears and come back with Chef John Doherty, formerly of the Waldorf Astoria, now of Black Bar, New York City. But in the context of what we're talking about here, the founder and of course, the culinary mind behind the Heavenly Harvest food bank and food items that are distributed nationwide for lesser privileged folks. And then you and I will come back. So after this, stick around on the Meat Speak podcast, powered by the certified Angus beef brand. Back here on the Meat Speak podcast, Brian Schaff with me on the line all the way from New York City. One of the iconic culinary talents from the Big Apple, Chef John Doherty. Chef, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Brian. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. For those of you who probably know the name John Doherty, but are still sort of sewing up some of those loose ends. Of course, Chef, you spent 30-ish years of your life, a good number of those as the executive chef at the iconic Waldorf Astoria, Bull and Bear, Peacock Alley, you name it. Now you have a restaurant down in Nomad called Black Barn. And
Yep,
yeah,
correct.
yeah.
That's right.
Can you tell us a little bit about I guess your career, how you got started? I believe you're a New York native, right?
I am. I was born and raised on Long Island, and when I was 15, like so many chefs today, got a job washing dishes in a restaurant to make some money, and that led to being a prep cook, and that led to being a line cook, and I just fell in love with the craft, the making food for people, making people happy with food. I worked in an open kitchen back then, and I saw the husband and wife chef team uh, really put so much love and energy into the food to make people happy. That's when I discovered the art of hospitality, and that's really what we do today. It's a labor of love. Our goal is to make people happy, and hopefully we can make some money out of it. Not everybody does. It's a tough business.
Especially where you are shacking up nowadays in
Yeah.
the big city. Can you talk to us a little bit? Obviously everybody is familiar with the Waldorf, and at one point in time, and probably still to this day, you had cooked for, I mean, more presidents and dignitaries from around the world. Because I mean, when people come to New York City, they're staying in your place. I mean, can you talk a little bit about some of the
Yeah.
folks that you've
Sure.
cooked for?
Yeah. So, the amazing thing is, at the time, sometimes, my wife at the time would say, oh gosh, you work so long and so hard. And I say, yeah, but the guy at the hotel down the street, he's working just as long and just as hard, but he doesn't get to cook for the president. He doesn't get to do the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He doesn't get to, everybody's once in a year VIP event took place at the Waldorf. They might have their other events somewhere else throughout the year, but the product launch, the show launch, the whatever the special occasion was, people went to the Waldorf. So everything we did had such importance to the client, and therefore it raised the level of expectation for what we did. It made everything special, and it brought a greater sense of purpose behind what we did. Now, every September, when you had the United Nations in session, not only did we have the United States president, since Herbert Hoover, stay at the Waldorf, but we had the president, prime minister, or head of state of 25 other countries staying at the Waldorf during that same period of time. So it wasn't hard for me to guard the title of the chef that's cooked for more heads of state than anybody else. It was really by default. They all came and stayed at the Waldorf, and I was the executive chef for 23 years. So 23 years times 20 to 25 heads of state it was a big number. But I had such a terrific team. My chefs were so inspired, and the cooks that did such great work. It was just an exciting time in my life. I loved every minute of it.
Yeah. So you're at the Waldorf. I believe the date's roughly 1986 through 2009.
1978. I started when I was 19 years old as a cook. I became the executive chef in 1985, and then left in 2009.
Gotcha. You left. You had a spell, and in Nomad now. Of course, Black Barn. It is it's an anomaly to a lot of restaurants that you see in New York City. I mean, it is a beast of a space. I mean, it's one of the largest restaurants in the city I've ever seen. Can you tell us about the food that that you guys are pulling off at Black Barn?
It's food that I want to eat, Brian. So for me, and spending so many years at the Waldorf, where it was pretty opulent, Every room was carpeted, white glove service, the drapes, everything had a tablecloth, silver service. Um, I just I didn't want any part of that anymore. I was done with it. I didn't think the public was still in love with that. At least most people. I wanted a restaurant. When I worked with the designer, I said I want to see concrete, steel, metal, wood, leather. I want texture. I want it to be rustic. I want it to be grounded. I want people to feel very comfortable where they're sitting, and yet I want to deliver refined food, not fussy food. I want the refinement of my cuisine. I want the balance of textures and intricacy of flavors and acid and sweet and sour and complexity is what I go for, and big flavor. But I don't have, you don't see here, pretty plates that go out. It's really straightforward, great food that I want to eat with a great wine list that isn't overpriced, great service, because it's really about hospitality is how we make people feel. So we have such a strong emphasis on service and connecting with people and making them feel welcome, making them feel cared for. And then you combine that in an environment where you're comfortable and with great food and really great wines. It's just been terrific. People really enjoy it.
Excellent. And shameless plug here. I'm a bit of a burger freak. I will say that last time I mean it's one of the best burgers you'll find in New York City. So, on a menu that has everything else imaginable, I'm the guy that comes in and gets the burger. And
So all right. So wait. So here you go. So I'd say about 4 or 5 weeks ago, one of the servers comes to me and says, "There's a gentleman out in the tavern. He said he eats so many burgers that his nickname is Burger. And he said, this is the best." He said, he told me this is the best burger he ever had in his life. I said, well, I got to go see this guy. So I go out, I come back from the kitchen, I go out and I talk to him. I said, I hear you enjoy your burger. He says, that's an understatement. He said, this burger, and he was lost for words. I said, it's engineered, isn't it? He says, exactly. And it is, it's engineered. The roll is the perfect softness. It's got a little bit of cheese on it. The tomato inside isn't raw tomato. It's confit tomato. It's baked slowly. We use a certified Angus beef blend of just the right blend of beef. So that's perfect. We make our own pork belly instead of bacon. We cook that for 12, 14 hours. The cheese is Tarentaise cheese. And so it's really engineered for perfection. And now I can't really have a burger anywhere but here, which is unfortunate because I don't like to eat in my own place because it's work.
You can never go out for one. You've cursed yourself, really.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
but we're very proud of it. We people do come here for the burger. Yeah.
That's right. I give my parents grief because they're from Amish country, and when they travel, they always end up at the local Cracker Barrel, no matter where they're at. So anytime I'm going anywhere, I always end up getting the burger. I guess I'm just the same.
Yeah.
So there was a spell between the end of your career at the Waldorf and Black Barn opening, and in that time you got really interested in, and you started this 501c3 Heavenly Harvest, correct? Where
yes.
you're making.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, which is feeding, thousands and thousands and thousands of people now. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Especially this time of year is probably the time of year that we at least recognize how much need there is out there. Although it exists 12 months out of the year, but how does a guy with the credentials that you have, coming from where you've been, I guess how did you weave your way into the idea of starting a nonprofit and making these nutritious meals for underprivileged folks?
Well, it's an interesting story, and I'd never told you this. So in between the Waldorf and Black Barn, I was doing some consulting. One of my projects was to create a line of food for the book Chicken Soup for the Soul. Many people have heard of it.
Yeah.
And they wanted to do a line of food, so they hired me to do it. And we actually came up with about 80 different products, and we got 28 of them out to market before they decided to change directions and just stick with publishing. But during that process, as I would go and constantly see and look through stores and see where the white space was or what the public could use or what's missing, that's where I would focus my energy on creating new stuff. I saw Uncle Ben's ready cook rice. And I said, I don't get it. This rice is cooked in a bag. It's room temperature. I didn't understand the chemistry behind it or how it would not go bad. I mean, if you and I put rice in a baggie and put it on the shelf, it would ferment, right? So I reached out to a couple of my food scientist friends, and they said, oh, yeah, it's like canning or a jar. It goes through a heat chamber, it sterilizes, and it's good. And I said, well, if I put chicken or fish or vegetables and sauce in there, would that work? And they said, sure. I said, well, how come nobody's doing it? And nobody knew. Nobody had an answer. Maybe it was too expensive. Nobody knew. So my thought was to do it, but not for sale. It was really to give to people who needed it. I thought it was an amazing way to pack nutrition into a pouch that doesn't have to be refrigerated. It can be fully cooked. It's fully cooked. It cooks in the bag at the plant, and then it just reheats for 90 seconds, either in the skillet or the microwave oven. And there's no reason why any of these foods need to have artificial ingredients or color or preservatives. The only reason they have those things in there is to make it less expensive. And I was not looking to make an inexpensive product because I wasn't looking to sell it. So there you have it.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just made 50,000 meals in July. We've distributed probably about 35,000 right now to different food banks in Boston, Chicago, New York, Baltimore, Hudson Valley, New York. We've got a few left where those are all scheduled to go, and we'll be doing another run probably in February with a new recipe, Asian stir fry. So it's very exciting. We'll be getting lots of support. But Bryan, honestly, I rely. We did a fundraising event, which was great, but I rely on donations, sponsors, and I make at least 80, probably 85% of the money I make. I have very little overhead. 85% of what I make goes into the meals, and the more money we raise, the more meals we can make. And the need is so much greater than the supply. And I'm hoping this continues to grow and we can make an impact, not just in this country, but internationally. It's very sad. Some of the stories that we hear, and my goal is to get this to the working poor. There are so many people, Bryan, that have to decide whether they're going to pay rent or go food shopping, and they have children. So they send their kids to school so they get a meal. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And this doesn't solve the problem, but we're putting a dent in it. It helps a lot. It's easy for kids to come home from school and pop one of these in a microwave and eat it while their parents are working. It's been so well received so far.
That's amazing, Chef. Now, can you talk a little bit about, I guess, numbers? Any idea, how many, since you guys founded the nonprofit? I guess how many meals have you guys cranked out in total? Because it's been a number of years right now.
Well, I did start it for a number of years, but it also took a long time. Running this restaurant, I wasn't the fastest guy out there, right? So there's a lot of legal work to be done. We had to raise money, develop the product. So we really put it all together. Really came together just in I guess early 2018, where I was able to run my first run of 50,000 meals. So we really just launched those 50,000 meals. That was our first run. Now we're getting ready to do our second one, and we need all the help we can get because they're gonna go fast. They're gonna go fast.
That's amazing. And Chef, one of the things I caught, and you already touched upon it a little bit, the ingredients that it's made with. A lot of times it seems like, you've seen it played out in documentaries and things like that. Is the a lot of times the cheapest, most accessible foodstuffs that people can get are generally not the best thing for you that's out there. You guys, these things are super high in protein, and
yes,
yeah.
Well, that was my goal. Each meal, I know what I need. I need to eat protein throughout the day to feel good, to have the energy. And generally, 20 to 25 grams of protein will make my headache go away and give me the energy I need to get going. So I made sure that each of these meals has at least 20 grams of protein. We get them through with the use of beans, vegetables, and meat. So it's even the macaroni and cheese, the sauce is made from cauliflower. And you would never know it, but the cauliflower and the cheese, and thickened with white beans. So you have this macaroni and cheese, and you think you're eating macaroni and cheese, but there's 20 grams of protein in the entire dish. It's great.
And it's made from the palate of, John Doherty. So, of course, it's going to be good, right? Oh, yeah, that's awesome. Chef, you talked about it a little bit already. Of course, the more help you guys can get, the better. Can you give us some avenues of how people can assist you guys?
Yeah. So through our website, heavenlyharvest.org, is a great way to make donations. Also, we just signed up for Amazon Smiles. So every time, if you sign up for that, every time you make a purchase, Amazon actually donates 0.5% to Heavenly Harvest. Of course, there's many other charities as well you can support, but we're in there, Heavenly Harvest, and those are really the best ways to do that.
Excellent. And Chef, just so when this episode goes live, we'll put all the links up and everything as well. There was a statistic, and I can't remember what it was, but it was something that it was like $20 will feed so many people for so many days through this. Do you remember those numbers off the top of your head?
Well, no, I don't. But each meal costs me $1.40 to make. So if you donate $10, you're going to make about 7 meals. So that's 1 meal per day for a week for somebody. That's tremendous, right? It's amazing. And it's so much better for a person than fast food, which is really what they can afford. Actually, fast food is cheaper than going to the grocery store and buying ingredients for you to make. So they don't have the money for that. But there's just no nutritional value behind most of the fast food that's available to people.
Excellent. Well, for our listeners out there, I would highly encourage you. Again, that website is heavenlyharvest.org. Not to be confused with .com. That actually is another company out there that I came across with. So do make the difference. It is heavenlyharvest.org, and especially really any time at all, but especially now, the Christmas season, the season of giving. Take some time and do your best to help Chef Doherty in this mission. So.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Brian.
Hey, thank you, Chef. We appreciate all that you can do. The chef who's cooked for more presidents and dignitaries from around the world is now also doing his best to help those very, very much in need. So, Chef, we appreciate you not just for taking time to join us here on the Meat Speak podcast, but certainly for all you do for humanity in general. Thank you, Chef.
Thank you, Brian.
Hey, Merry Christmas, sir.
Same to you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Back here on the Meat Speak podcast, powered by the certified Angus beef brand, Brian Schaaf, Chef Tony Biggs, talking about the season of giving, right? It's the Christmas season, right? Yep. So, we just heard from Chef John Doherty of Heavenly Harvest in New York City. Of course, his restaurant Black Barn, and of course his former restaurant. Of course, we've all heard of the Waldorf Astoria, Bull and Bear, Peacock Alley, right?
Yeah.
It's an icon in New York
Historic.
City. Chef, we spent some time earlier discussing your involvement with the Second Harvest Food Bank in New Orleans post Hurricane Katrina. I mean, you talk about something that what would have sprung up as a result of Katrina. This is obviously an example. One of the things that we didn't touch on, you'd mentioned the geographic proximity of the food bank. They built this. They built the kitchen there, but the fact that you had some pretty heavy hitters next door also helped the cause.
Wow!
Right?
Not only did we have the late Paul Prudhomme Spice Factory Company right across the street, who would donate spices to our cause when we're doing big batch cooker of gumbo, okay, and other dishes. But we had Cisco New Orleans right next door. I mean, hey, a big shout out to them because they are an incredible group. And as you know, Brian, we've dealt with Cisco for a long time. But I'll tell you what, they give back to the community. It's amazing. Okay,
That's amazing. That's amazing. And
and of course Mardi Gras World across the street. So you don't have to go downtown and buy all your Mardi Gras paraphernalia. You can go right across the street.
Now I'll tell you what, as a and I was going to call you a Yankee, but as a Bostonian, I know that's probably not appropriate. As a Northerner, did you have any? How long did it take you to get up the nerve to make gumbo in New Orleans?
Well, it's funny you should say that because we had a gumbo cook-off, all right? All the employees had to bring their gumbo. And I have to tell you, I have lived around the world, and nobody and no culture is passionate about their food but the New Orleans culture and people. I got to tell you, you could talk to somebody 15 years old and they can tell you what's exactly in a gumbo, how to steam crawfish, and they know who John Folse is, okay?
Chef Folse.
Chef Folse.
That's right.
I mean, the passion for food, and I mean, the king cake. Oh, legendary king cakes. I love king cake.
Yeah.
Hey, February's coming up. Well, I'm going to buy you a king cake.
I'm always afraid I'm going to eat the
little baby Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think they put them in there anymore. So we're going to put our little baby cows here. It's certified Angus beef, and we'll see if you get one of those.
Excellent.
But I got to tell you, we've been talking about food banks. We can't do it alone. It's a huge food bank. We were doing some days 36 to 4,000 meals a day. You can't do this with limited resources. You have to rely on a lot of folks who volunteer. And I got to tell you, I used to have 40 volunteers to produce those 3,600 to 4,000 meals a day. Amazing.
Yeah.
We would have drivers, so some people drove the meals. We would have people on the line, right? Like dishing up, ready to go into a hot box. Chefs, you know what I'm talking about? And at the same time, we have people prepping for the next day, right? They're bagging apples and oranges and getting the milk ready and getting everything for distribution. So 40 folks a day and different folks, okay? It was like Groundhog Day, all right?
So when you translate that to working in a restaurant with the same line cooks and the issues they have, you're retraining people
every single day. Every single day, right? So, I learned how to run a huge. I thought I knew banquets, and and this is why I succeeded too, is because, and this is where you chefs out there, if you're listening, that you're going to see succeed in this because you're doing 3,000, 4,000 meals a day, and if you have that banquet experience in large hotels, large properties, this is just a piece of cake because you have to, it's easy. It's in your sleep. So,
yeah.
I miss it because it was an adrenaline rush every day to get 4,000 meals. I'd be there at 3:00 in the morning. Really?
Amazing. That's amazing.
Amazing.
That's amazing. Chef, and you'd already touched on it, there are lots of people out there looking, thinking, asking, what can I do? How can I do this? And, of course, the easy way is to say, well, obviously, funding is always an issue for these things.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can write a check, sweet, write a check.
Sure.
But even if you're somebody who doesn't come from a culinary background, who isn't a Tony Biggs or who isn't a John Doherty, you'd mentioned volunteering. Just show up, use the gifts, even if you don't know how to cook. There is a job for you, right?
I got to tell you, this is another heart-wrenching thing. I had folks there that actually had terminal cancer as my volunteers. I've had people there that I knew, and 6 months later, God rest their soul, they were deceased. But they were volunteering to the last minute. They knew what was happening to them, but they had the love of giving back. It's all about love, ladies and gentlemen, chefs and boys and girls. It's about love. It's if you want to give your heart to something, if you want to give back to folks that are totally unfortunate, this is the way to do it. And you can volunteer. You can call the food bank. They are always looking for volunteers. They will put you on a schedule immediately. Trust me.
Excellent. Well said, Chef. And on that note, I believe it is time. We appreciate...
Well, listen.
You look like you've got something to say.
I just want to say seasoned greetings, and happy holidays to everyone.
You were waiting to drop that one in.
I was.
If this is your first time tuning into the Meat Speak podcast powered by the Certified Angus Beef brand, know that you can catch us across most major podcasting platforms, including Apple, Google Play, Spotify, or simply by going to certifiedangusbeef.com/podcast, and you'll see Chef Tony and my faces looking right back at you. Until next time, I do believe this is the last podcast of the year 2019. We'll see y'all in 2020. See you next year, Chef.
Bye-bye.